Alphabetdave was the name of a user on the Creepypasta wiki. He was active between 2012 to 2014, and in that time he would write 4 stories. Those stories were as follows. RiverWiles.exe, a Sonic.exe ripoff that just had To the Moon characters instead of Sonic characters. The story plays out like one of those cliché EXE stories with Eva Rosaline, Neil Watts, and Johnny Wiles all getting killed off in weird ways by an evil version of River. At least it plays out like a cliché.exe story until the ending, where the mom walks into the protagonist's room, only to find him dead. The ending reads as follows. James's mother walked into his room after he wasn't responsive to her knocks on his door, or her calling him downstairs for dinner, which was very much unlike him. She gently opened his door, only to find him hanging by a noose. At first she thought it was suicide, only to find a note on his desk that read, "Ready to join me on the moon? RW." She called the cops, but they couldn't find any evidence it was murder. He demands a sacrifice, a story about a cult that worships Slenderman and sacrifices homeless people and prostitutes to the creature to appease him. There's a scene in which the main character stumbles upon the body of a prostitute that was killed by the cult. An excerpt from the story. As I was running from those crazy cult members, who wished to kill me for intruding on their little ritual, I looked to my left and saw a body. A woman wearing nothing but a green bikini top and booty shorts, her head removed, and satanic symbols carved into her body. I nearly vomited, but I managed to keep the bite down long enough to run. How to make snuff films. A rather edgy story from the point of view of a serial killer who decides to teach other serial killers how to make snuff films. There's a scene in which he describes his first killing, which reads as follows. I remember my first participant. He kicked and screamed and cried, but all of that stopped once the drill entered his temple. Stu's suicide. A Squidward suicide ripoff, this time involving Stu from the Rugrats. There was a scene where a dead body was briefly shown on screen. I won't describe it here as it's rather graphic and involves a child, but if you know what a blood eagle is, then you can probably get a good idea on what is described. Sometime after his last story was posted, people on the internet discovered that all of the people who died in his stories closely matched the descriptions of people who actually died. James Dogwood, age 14, found hanging by a noose, with the only thing resembling a note being the lyrics to Everything Is Alright from To the Moon. His death was believed to be a suicide at the time. Amanda Green, age 25, a prostitute found dead in a ditch with her head removed and occult symbols carved into her body. Her head was later found in a dumpster behind a Burger King. Drew Darwin, age 42. His body washed up on the side of a lake, thought to have drowned only for authorities to later discover that his left temple was drilled into. The name and age of the person whose death mirrored the description of Stu's suicide was withheld by the police. The only information that they'd willingly give out is that a minor was found dead in a very similar manner to a blood eagle. People initially thought he was an edgelord using real deaths to make his stories edgier, so he got ridiculed and mocked online for some time. His stories got deleted, and all the narrators who read his stories deleted their narrations, requested takedowns of archived narrations of his stories, and deny ever having read his stories to this very day. People stopped ridiculing him and became very scared and concerned when a Twitter post started making its rounds online from user Insectophobia, who claimed to be an IRL friend of Alphabetdave. Some of you might remember the creepypasta author Alphabetdave. Well, I was a close IRL friend of his until he was arrested for murder. All the descriptions of killings across his stories matched the descriptions of how he left his victims. A week later, it was confirmed that a man named Dave Newman had murdered 4 people. One was once thought to have committed suicide until new evidence came out. It's unknown what the evidence was, as police were hushed about the case. But one thing's for certain, it's probably a good thing that Alphabetdave isn't writing any more stories. And that was Alphabetdave, written by RedZ gaming68, also known as Voiceless Defender on Fandom. Review time. Not an awful story, but the implications kind of ruined it a bit. And when I say implications, I mean the overall motivation as to why these events were happening. Now, I do respect what the author was going for, such as the overall idea. It had decent build-up. All of the events in the story, the stories listed in the documentation alongside the murders caused by this man in real life, they connect well, they link well, you're able to understand what's going on. It's coherent enough to it's coherent enough to get. I definitely respect what he was going for. However, it does have its fair share of flaws. The first flaw being that the introduction is way too short. For example, the intro is like, Alphabetdave was this guy. He was active between this, and he would write 4 stories. Here are the stories. I feel like the introduction would be much more intriguing and interesting if it gave more insight onto Alphabetdave's notoriety. I don't think I'm using the right word. Popularity. Like, is he well known? What was he well known on the creepypasta wiki? Like, how well known was he? Because, like, this insectophobia dude says, oh, some of you might remember this author. But it's not exactly made clear if he was popular at the time. Yeah, people narrated his stories, but, like, I feel like there could be more information about him in that regard. As for some of the murders that were brought out by him, no offense, but the idea of this guy killing people based off of his, well, fandoms is kind of ridiculous, especially the Stu's suicide part. I didn't understand. First of all, why Rugrats? Was he a fan of Rugrats? Why did he choose Rugrats in particular? Does he look like Stu in real life? Hence the wait, he wouldn't have killed himself. Hence the name of the stuff. I can't talk today. Not to mention, he says it's rather graphic, involves a child, and it involves a blood eagle. To those who don't know, a blood eagle is a torture method where someone's back is torn open to where the back of their ribs are showing. Why do that to a kid? Why does this Dave dude kill children? It's not like really. It definitely comes off as tell, don't show. In this story, things are made clear, and I like that, but they're made a little bit too clear, leaving some of the most important questions unanswered. Like I said before, why is this child being murdered by Dave? Like out of all the characters that could have been murdered, why him? And also, not to mention the beginning of the story involving the Sonic.exe ripoff. um, being his being the first story that's documented, it makes the murder of said person all the more like not scary, like not not disturbing. Like who would base their murder off of a Sonic.exe clone? I mean, that's possible. That could happen since there's 7 billion people on this earth. But come on, it's silly. My final rating would have to be a 5 out of 10. Actually, you know what? A 5.5. It's again, it's not awful, but if you fix up the implications on board and maybe change some of the story pickings and how the people are murdered and such and why they were murdered, I feel like this can be a much better story than you had in mind. I hope that came out right. But as always, this is simply my personal opinion. We all have our opinions regarding these pastas. What did you think of the pasta? What would you have done to improve upon it? And as always, I will see you all in the next narration. I love you all. Bless.